The Sonic series has a very unique relationship with fan projects. Compared to most other gaming franchises, Sonic fan games seem to be almost celebrated by the gaming community at large, but especially within the Sonic community itself, there are many great fan games that have gone on in the halls of history for Sonic fame, games that people will recommend as if they were official products. And Sonic World probably stands amongst some of the most known of them. It's been around for a long time. I'm pretty sure it had 2 previous major versions, though I did not play either of them. I was aware of them and their growing fan base, helped in no short order by the fact that they were easily moddable by the community and thus content was forever created. Sonic World DX 2.0 released recently, and I have been able to play the game for quite some time now. I haven't seen everything there is, but I've at least taken a look, and I've given most of what the game has to offer at the time of recording a fair go. One of the most appealing aspects to Sonic World DX is that its gameplay is 3D. Not just occasionally 3D like the majority of modern Sonic games, it is squarely 3D. The gameplay will almost never take a 2D perspective, and the few times it does, it's not true 2D, it's just a fixed camera angle. You still retain full 3 dimensions of movement. And having a 3D Sonic game be 3D is something I have wanted ever since they stopped doing it with Sonic 06. It's what made the 3D games, well, 3D, and I felt like it contributed to Sonic's mobility and platforming in a very healthy way without severely restricting speed. So Sonic World DX, offering not only that, but multiple playable characters, which is something else that's been absent for an incredibly long time, makes it a very interesting package to get into. Though, one of the first things you'll probably notice when you start up the game is its presentation, which I think is done quite well. They've got custom assets, a nice menu, good user interface, and they've even got their own theme song. I don't know if the full band is there, but certainly some members of Crush 40 are present for this song, including the singer, Johnny, and the song is pretty catchy. Nice for the background, it doesn't distract you too much, it's got a good gentle flow to it. I think it works well. The level layouts are nice and clear, you've got them in rows, and each stage has multiple objectives. Think of like Sonic Adventure 2 or Sonic Heroes, where you could go to a stage and do alternative missions. That's still in this game as well, but these missions can change the way the level's played by quite a bit. Some of them might be a simple, okay, get to the goal in a certain amount of time. Some of them might be just collect a certain amount of rings, the usual, but some are more creative than that. You've got emerald hunting as an optional mission for these. You've got flicky collecting from Sonic 3D Blast, which I'm sure most of you probably haven't played, but I was very intrigued to see that. And it played relatively as you would expect, quite well. You can have races where a race course is set up and you need to do 3 laps to get the best time. You can do destruction or destroyed or whatever they called it, where you have to destroy a certain amount of enemies a certain amount of time. They've even got Robot Carnival, which was the sort of enemy spam bosses from Sonic Heroes, as a optional mission for one of the levels. In fact, that reminds me, they also have Sonic Lost World boost sections or mock speed sections sort of levels. They've got one of them, the honeycomb one, in this game as well, and it plays quite similarly. So there is a vast selection of stages to play on with further ways to play them. And an extra incentive to replay these levels is that they each have 5 red rings hidden on them, and if you collect all 5, you'll unlock an encore mode Phantom Ruby distorted version of the level. I only did it for the first stage so far, but it turned it into a Sonic Shuffle reference with working floor tiles, and you do the stage in reverse order than normal, which was very, very fun to see. For characters, you've got a decent selection to begin the game off, with more characters coming in future updates. But to focus on what we have right now, characters can be generally grouped into either speed, flying, or power category, though just because a character shares the same category, it doesn't mean they'll be playing as identical clones. This game has gone out of its way to try and make each of the characters as unique as possible without completely diverting the core gameplay formula. You can think of this approach most like the advanced or classic games, where everyone has a base and then they've got elements built on top of that base, but at a very minimalistic point of view, they play the same. So they can have different speed, different jumps, and most importantly, different moves. My favourites so far in this build to play as were Shadow, who plays a lot like you would think he does from Sonic Adventure 2, but he can use a damaging Chaos Spear attack in the air. He has the Light Speed Dash by default, and he can use Chaos Control if you max out his energy meter, which freezes time like it does in Sonic Heroes, which I very much appreciated. I enjoyed Rouge the Bat. She has a little bit of a difference to her Adventure 2 counterpart. She still kicks, she still can fly, but the flying is now more like Tails, a proper flight. Instead of the glide, she can open her wings for a moment and lock her vertical movement and maintain her current momentum upon activation to sort of glide for a moment, but depending on your speed, you can get a lot more out of it than a glide, and you can still fly before or after that as well. So it makes Rouge feel more like a fly character, and it doesn't completely get rid of the gliding. Rouge is also supposedly able to climb, which would have been even nicer, but I don't know if I'm doing something wrong or if it's just a bug in this version of the game. It is the first version of 2.0, but she never ever climbed onto any surface whatsoever, despite being told that she can. So that was a little disappointing. Still, with what was there, Rouge was still fun to play. And then Omega, I also enjoyed. He's big and strong. You can get a massive drill and just ram through things, shoot a chain gun, use a flamethrower. And when he glides, his allies climb onto his shoulders, which I thought was amusing. So basically Team Dark. But Sonic the Hedgehog himself was also quite fun. He has a trick move from the advanced games that gives him a burst of momentum. He's got the bounce bracelet. Sonic basically is a momentum character. Almost everything he does propels him forward in some way and interacts with the physics in the stages. That is not all this game has to offer though. Unlike Sega, who have admitted they know Chao Garden is the most requested feature and yet refrain from including it, Sonic World DX does have a Chao Garden, and it's quite a big one. You can raise up to 20 Chao in a very nice Chao Garden that combines elements from previous ones, plus a couple of its own areas too, with new items and a functional karate and racing mode for your Chao. There are some differences to the Adventure 2 version here and there, but I'll go into those in a separate video dedicated to the Chao Garden. All you need to know for now is it does have one, it does work. Why doesn't Sega do it themselves? Other side content takes place on what's known as the Island, which is an island that starts off rather barren, natural, but there's already NPCs populating it that you can interact with. Moreover, you can explore this island and you may come across, I think they were tickets. With these tickets, you can take them to one of the NPCs and unlock a side quest optional mission. These missions don't really give you anything, but they're more for fun. They're a challenge, they're unique gameplay. The one I did had you have to fight two characters in a sort of Sonic Rivals 2 rival fight fashion. On top of this, you can also find gold rings hidden throughout the island, and if you access them, you'll get taken to past levels from older versions of Sonic World DX, and you can play them in full. So that's just even more content. Nothing wrong with that. The island itself also can be upgraded over time as you gain collectibles and unlock more NPCs and quests and things like that to do as well. All in all, Sonic World DX 2.0 has a ton of content to offer with a large variety in that content. Whatever Sonic fan you are, as long as you're willing to try out something new, you'll find something you enjoy, whether it's reminiscent of something you've played in the past or not. I understand that not everybody has played Sonic games back when 3D meant it was 3D. However, this game has a higher speed cap than, let's say, Adventure 1, so it isn't markedly slower than a Boost game, yet it still offers you more control than the Boost games, which lets platforming retain its importance. That said, there are a couple issues with Sonic World DX. These are not things I'm holding against the game, it's only just released, they're going to update it, but they are problems I encountered that I think need to be stated. Sometimes scripted movement will carry on past the intended area, so your momentum is locked, making it hard to turn, but most importantly, you're always moving. It's like playing a Sonic 06 Mach Speed section, but it's just everywhere. This happens a lot to me during stage 1, hitting some boost panels can lock your character. I think what's happening is some boost panels in this game, when you use them, your character is taken away from you. The game controls them just to make things run smoother. Maybe there were a bunch of snaking bends, or it just wants to look good. But sometimes the boost panel, maybe when you jump just after hitting it, so you're not running where the game expected you to be, will cause this momentum and forced control to stick to your character, and this can make it very difficult to play. Parallel to this, sometimes the camera itself will lock up instead of your character's movement, making it hard to see where you're going. The only way I was able to get around this was to activate something else that takes control of your camera, like a rainbow ring. But depending on where this happens to you, if there's just no objects around, then you're kind of screwed and you'll have to restart. Staged music sometimes just won't play. Even if you restarted a mission that had it before, sometimes it will just cut off. This isn't huge, obviously, it doesn't affect the gameplay at all, it just can be a bit strange. But yeah, sometimes the music it won't happen. Classic stages that you can find in the island of previous releases have some soft locks. I discovered one where there was this gap between mountains, a little pit. It wasn't solid ground, so my character wouldn't actually reset their jumping state, and so they were forever falling and they couldn't move, and I wasn't a flying character, so I couldn't fly out of it, and it was just unfortunate. This is probably because they are older stages, less refined, so it's just something that's going to happen, but that's just to be aware of. Some of the older stages can have some soft locks into them. Characters have aerial moves. On the controller, you press LT to use them. The keybind is whatever the keybind is, but the problem is a lot of these LT aerial moves don't seem to work. I'm not sure if there's something I'm missing, or maybe they weren't bound to the control scheme properly, but I press LT, Knuckles doesn't do his drill dive, Amy doesn't do her Pico crash, it just does nothing. And apparently you can cancel flying without using a stomp with Tails, for instance, by pressing LT, but since that doesn't work for me, it's not an option at my disposal, so I would hope that gets addressed, assuming it isn't something I'm doing wrong. Eggman boxes, the items that are supposed to hurt you and take rings away, don't do anything. You can get as many of those as you want, you won't lose score, you won't take damage, you won't lose your rings, it's all fine. You don't even get put in a damage animation, and I'm assuming that these are supposed to hurt you, since in the normal Sonic games that's their function. Here, they don't work, so that needs to be addressed. As I mentioned before, Rouge cannot climb walls, even though it's stated she can. I'm assuming this is just as simple as there was some sort of oversight, that maybe there's a switch they haven't flicked or a value they left false. Just needs to fix that one. Custom teams, really nice idea, where instead of playing a single character or two together, you can play with 3, and the custom teams means you can put any 3 together. The problem is that you need to collect 10 emblems to unlock this feature. Not too hard, but every time you close the game and start it again, it resets the lock, and you'll need to get one more emblem to refresh it. Problem is, when you start getting most of the easily obtained emblems, you're gonna run into a problem where you just can't use custom teams because there isn't an emblem you can just quickly grab, so the game's gonna lock it out. Clearly, something's wrong with the code there. It should be a simple fix, but it's a necessary fix because that's a whole feature unfairly locked away because of that bug. And the last thing to take note of was that with emerald hunting, this isn't a bug, it's just a design oversight. You could easily exploit getting an S rank by dying, because when you die it resets your timer. So what I did was I just found an emerald shard and then died, and if I couldn't find one in time, died anyway, and it meant that no matter what you did, no matter how poorly you played, you would get an S rank because your time was so low artificially. So I would just make the timer not reset on a death, so that if you did want to get your S rank, you would have to restart from the beginning. Still, as I was saying, that wasn't supposed to put the game down. These are just a couple changes and fixes that would help the game feel even better to play. So much effort and passion has clearly been put into the game, and it is a good time. It's fun. It works for the most part. There's not much to criticize from a design point of view. And best of all, it's free. They're not charging you money to play this, so there's no reason not to give it a go if it sounds like it interests you. Thanks for watching this video all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. Covering fan games isn't something I've done too often, though I might change that in the next couple weeks. If you have anything you wish to add, or you know the solution to some of the problems I listed, then please let me know in the comments below. I hope you have a great day, and to see you next time. This is the Mighty Emperor, signing off.